Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We have a special guest today, Gary Acevedo. Gary, welcome to introduce yourself and show us a little bit about your background and the business you're running.
Sure. I have a company called Rise Leadership Group, and I've actually been doing what I do for over 40 years. I was very blessed by the fact that when I was very young, my first mentor was generations ahead of his time. So, when I went through my first breakthrough experience, it was like he had discovered a version of healing and empowering people by going to a place that I now call core level healing and reprogramming. So things like NLP, neuro linguistic programming, or other technologies are beginning to catch up to what he was giving me long ago. And so that process has helped me to create remarkable results for leaders and influencers. Like that process helped Mark Hughes create Herbalife. That was one of my early successes. It also helped Ron and Joseph bring 12.5 million people out of poverty through microloans. And they've told me that that wasn't the only thing that made the difference. There was a lot of things that went into it, but I'm really glad that when they went through my retreat, they told me that my favorite process, which is about how the greatest tool to manifest your vision is what gets called higher purpose. And they both told me that was their favorite process of the whole retreat. And another of my favorite successes was Bert. And this process helped Bert. And today his company saves hundreds of premature babies' lives every day. And so I'm really grateful that through my own healing and progression and reprogramming, I've been able to become somebody who can really help ignite other leaders and people who want to make a real difference in life.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Was there a specific moment in your career when you realized that most organizations struggle with leadership, not because of talent, but because of the systems
Yeah.
and structure?
Yes. I was working with the therapist who took John Lennon through therapy, and I was in an intensive along with 12 other rooms. We were all with different therapists. And I had this moment that for me was one of the most profound moments of my career. This woman was having a really hard time talking about what she thought was her biggest hangup, which was, I think, being overly critical. She felt like she'd ruined the lives of her kids. And I had this revelation where I suddenly realized that what she thought was her biggest hangup was in reality a hidden great gift, strength, or talent. And when I saw that, I realized everything that human beings criticize themselves for, whether it's being in overwhelm or anxiety or depression or stress, everything that human beings criticize them for is actually a hidden great talent, gift, or strength. So when I wrote the book, I put in there what is the great gift behind these different things, like being in overwhelm or being overweight or all the different things that humans criticize themselves for. So when I work with leaders or influencers, it's fun for me to really, when they can be honest about how they get in their own way, it's fun for me to point out that the kind of the emotional barrier that they keep carrying on their shoulders is actually an illusion. It doesn't even exist. And so once people begin to get that, like when they come to my retreat, they kind of are coming in like, I hope I can really get fixed. And the truth is, they don't need to be fixed. They're already, underneath all the doubts and the fear, they're already actually perfect. And once they begin to get it that there's, quote, nothing wrong with me, then the game transforms from maybe if I can fix this, I'll be okay, to, well, if I'm already okay, well, how good could I stand it? And so that's a whole different game. And they start to feel really great about operating at a whole different level, at diving into life wholeheartedly, at doing what I call disappearing into the act. Once they get out of their head and out of their ego and really begin to focus on what brings them their highest excitement. Or in my public workshops, I'll say, what makes your heart sing the most? And once they really feel like they can disappear into the act of fully expressing whatever makes their heart sing, then it's amazing to watch the results in their life, in their business, with their family, with their kids. It's really wonderful to watch people who have talent and gifts when they blossom into a whole higher level that surprises them. Like they have big dreams and, big goals. They want to really make a difference. But, the worst you can say about most people is that they're really clever at getting in their own way.
When you walk into an organization for the first time, what are the first signals that tell you the leadership structure is broken?
That's a great question. I remember one team I was working with. It's a worldwide organization. And I've learned over the years that, you always have to talk to the executives, the leaders, find out what they're looking for. How can I help them look good? If you go down to the floor, to the people who, work their butt off every day, they always know exactly what's wrong with the company. Like they always know. Like I remember this company I'm thinking about, they told me how the owner, the founder, he's a visionary. And so he would get really excited about, now we're going to do this. And everybody would, work really hard at making that happen. And then before that could even come to fruition, he'd be like, oh, now we're going to do this. And so they all knew that it wasn't working. So it's amazing how it doesn't matter the size of the company. The people in any department or any company, they always know what's wrong with the company or what's missing with the leaders. And I've learned some tools that will help any leader rise to the next level of the company and their potential. I'll give you just one example because I've had leaders come to me and say, I really want to move up the ladder. I have a bunch of tools, but I'm going to give you one as an example. I would say, okay, every day from a certain time, give yourself like a certain time, like from 9 to 10 or 2 to 3 or whatever. And for that period of time, no matter what anybody says to you, I want you to say to them, let me see if I'm hearing you right. And then ask yourself, what is the positive intention about their message? Like if they're complaining, what's the positive intention behind that complaint? Or if they're asking for something or they don't know what to do or whatever, what's the positive intention behind their message? And then say it back to them. Say, I can really see why you're, concerned about that because you really care about this or that. And, you're very dedicated to making things work. I remember when my cousin worked for the mayor in Salt Lake City, and she learned this principle. And everybody at the mayor's office thought she walked on water because people very rarely feel heard or listened to. And it's really interesting. Another great principle is that when any human being is upset, they're not aware or conscious of the fact that they're actually asking for someone, the person they're upset with, to say something to them that is very specific. Like human beings' heart is like a secret combination lock. 12 to the left, 5 to the right, 22 to the left. You're off by one number, it doesn't open. Well, in language, the human heart is the same way, only with words. So when I'm upset with you, I want to hear something very specific that my secret combination lock wants to hear. And even if you try to say some really nice things to you, if the words are not right, my heart doesn't open. So in a company, it's fascinating when you can teach leaders that particular principle and somebody comes and they're very upset about whatever, and the leader says, let me ask you a question. What would be the very best thing that person or anyone could actually say to you about that? And the moment the person goes, well, I'd love to hear them say da 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 da. And then if the leader says that to them, it's amazing how they melt. Matter of fact, when I do the public workshops, in the companies I work with, I call it disarming verbal attackers. But in my public workshops, it goes by the nickname how to melt your favorite jerk. Because when somebody's attacking you, they don't recognize their own positive intention. They think they're just out to get you. But when you can learn how to feed back to them the positive intent, they don't get to vote. They melt. And it's amazing how when you get good at that skill, somebody can be attacking you and look like a verbal monster, and you can turn that verbal monster into a teddy bear within a matter of minutes.
Okay. From the companies you work with, what are the three most common leadership breakdowns that slow down the growth?
Well, I would say that most leaders are not conscious of the fact that when their productivity drops, it's because they're either wimping out, like they're giving in, going along with, swallowing, not asking for what's true at 100%. They're wimping out. Or they're ripping somebody's face off. They're verbally attacking or blaming or shaming or guilt tripping or whatever. But the point is, wimping out or being aggressive, neither one works, and it's not actually authentic. It's not real, and it drops their productivity. So, and this is something people shouldn't blame themselves for, because all of us human beings do it. We learn from our parents. You either wimp out, give in, go along with, or you rip their face off. And so we all do that. Whenever something doesn't fit our pictures, we go to the passive or the aggressive side, and that's not assertive. That's not taking command. That's not taking charge. That's not being authentic. Being assertive is being authentic, which means asking for what is true wholeheartedly at 100%. In a way that honors the person you're talking to.
On the business side of Verizon Leadership Group, what has been the hardest part of scaling a leadership consulting firm?
I think for our company, because I'm brilliant in front of the room, but one of my lack of skills is in like business or marketing. And so, we've spent a lot of money investing in people that promise the moon and the stars. We're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, and and then what they said they would do did not happen, or some of them happened a little bit but not like we were hoping. So I think marketing is probably the biggest challenge for us, for my company. And I love referrals. I love that when I do a good job, they'll pass me on to somebody else and all of that. That's great. But I believe there is marketing available, and I keep looking for the thing that will really explode us like I know we deserve.
Let's see. If you could have a magic wand and remove one operational bottleneck in your firm tomorrow, what would it be?
A magic wand to give me something that I'm looking for?
Yeah, a magic wand to remove one operational bottleneck in your firm. What would it be?
Well, to answer that, I'm gonna give you my highest context, my highest purpose. I want to create an army of influencers, leaders, speakers, coaches, people who want to really make a difference. Because when I do my retreat and I see the miracles that happen, I think it's a crime that this retreat is not in every major city in the world. And so if I had a magic wand, I would have that. I would have the technologies that we've discovered that create such amazing results that it gets out to everybody.
Interesting. Okay. Can you share a little bit more about the retreat you were talking about?
Yeah, I designed it decades ago, and I've learned a lot since then, of course, but it's an experiential retreat. So it happens in 2 phases, an evening and 5 days, and then about a month later, an evening and 4 days. I found out that because one of the things I teach is presentations. Like I've done it for AT&T and different companies. And I learned really early on that the greatest tool that any presenter has at their disposal, whether it's a 5th grade teacher or a Fortune 500 CEO, the greatest tool that any presenter has at their disposal is called the space of a room. It's the invisible emotional atmosphere that fills a room. It's what makes people lean forward in the chairs, laugh at the jokes, have discoveries, insights, ahas, things like that. And so, about the time I began getting really good at that, I created the retreat, which I call the Awakening. And it's a completely immersive experience. Like, people turn off their cell phones, they give someone their watches, they kind of live in timelessness. And we have so many amazing processes that they keep getting touch, move, lifted, inspired, higher and higher and higher. And it's interesting because even by the end of the very first full day, they're so lifted, they're so touch, moved, lifted, inspired that they get this look on their face like deer in the headlights, where they're like, like that. And then on the first day that I do what I call a breakthrough, a demonstration in front of the room,
Okay.
it's like who wants a breakthrough? And people stand up, the strong ones stand up. I say, okay, what do you want a breakthrough on? Is it money? Is it love life? Is it, parenting? Whatever. And within about 25, 30 minutes, there's not a dry eye in the house. And everyone in that room is crystal clear that that person's life will never be the same, because we don't realize that when we're young, like 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, human beings that are that age, when they begin to think there's something wrong with me, they make up the worst words that people can think of, like I'm stupid, or I'm worthless, or I'm unlovable, or I'm different, or I'm bad. And when they finally have a breakthrough and they pop that bubble of reality that they've been looking through as a filter, that actually is what elicits all the different results in their life. When they pop that negative reality, that bubble of reality that says I'm not good enough, they have this amazing experience. Like in my first breakthrough, it was like getting on an elevator in my consciousness, and I got higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And then I saw the truth of who I am. And it was like I knew exactly what I had searched for my entire life, and I was now filled to the brim with it. And I knew that I was free, and I knew that people out here in the quote real world don't have a clue what that experience is like, mostly. And my first thought was, thank you. My second thought was, don't ever leave me. And my third thought was, wow, what if I could share this with people? And so when you watch people have that experience, it's life-changing. I mean, a person's life can change in a heartbeat if they have the right experience. And then, of course, after the experience, they need to practice the skills that will actually keep reinforcing the authentic part of them that knows that I'm good enough, I'm brilliant, I'm capable, I'm amazing. The experience is just the first step. Then they need to practice it, because practicing the things that keep reinforcing and anchoring it in is what changes someone's life. So that's a little tidbit about the retreat. I could go on for hours, but I know we don't have that kind of time.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. See, for leaders listening right now who feel like their organization is moving slower than it should, what are the first three things they should evaluate?
Great question. Great question. The first thing they should realize is that the results in the company are not due to anything outside of them. It's not outside of them. They're the one who creates whatever circumstances they're going through. Once they get that level of ownership, they have real leverage. I remember I was at a big meeting with AT&T with some of the leaders, and I was just watching. I was in a meeting with Ron and Joseph, and at one point I had to leave, and one of the leaders stopped and said, "Hey, Gary, I know you haven't been sharing, but I can see the wheels turning. So before you leave, would you share with us your take on all this?" And I said this to them. I said, "You're all looking outside of the company as to what you can shift so you can get where you want to go. But the results that are going to happen are going to come from the leaders and from them looking at what do I need to own without being defensive, that I can see that I can do better at, because that's going to change the circumstances. Not when you focus on the circumstances instead of what's inside of you, you actually end up trying to put the fire out in the living room when the fire's on the stove. It's not outside of you, it's inside of you. So we call it the inner game. That's where the true results happen. So that's the first thing I would share with them. And then the
Okay.
second thing I would share is, are the people in your organization doing what they do from succumbing, like giving in, like, okay, I know it's my job. I said I would do it. Okay, I'll do it. Or does the company reinforce the real motivations for people? And it's not always about the money. If they're making good money, that's okay, but that's not the real motivators. The real motivators are, do people recognize my contribution? Do people see that I do a good job? Like I've gone into sales teams where one department's numbers were really down, and I taught them how to do what I call the greatest key to influence, which is to recognize and to speak to one's highest nobility. So I would take this team and I would show them how to have, like, first I would have one volunteer come up and I'd say, okay, I want you all to tell me what are their greatest gifts, strengths, and talents. And if you don't know them, use your intuition. And after they start getting into it, then they get in small groups and they do it for each other, like in a group of, say, 4 people. And they're always shocked. Boy, I never get to hear this kind of stuff. People are acknowledging me, complimenting me. My goodness, they see that in me? Wow. I didn't know people see that in me, right? And if the leader decides that they're going to do that for just the first 10 minutes of every day, you can't believe how the sales numbers go up. And that's true for any company. When the people in the company feel acknowledged, like recognized for my contribution, that's a huge motivator more than money.
Okay. That's a great answer. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right. So I have a lot more questions, but I'm not sure we have got time for this, to be honest.
I'll just ask whatever question you think is most important or whatever.
Let's see. One leadership myth that needs to die.
Criticism. People
If you
don't
elaborate.
realize that whenever we talk, like a few people now are beginning to understand the term projections, but they don't realize that no matter what you say to anybody, you are projecting. You are talking to you. So I tell my students and my leaders, do your very best to never criticize anybody, especially your children. Like scientists know that to make any relationship work, you have to have 5 positives to every negative. But with marriage and with children, you need 7 positives to every negative. That tells you how ass backwards we are as a culture. And when people in any company want real leverage, they understand that they want to do their best to get everybody to stop criticizing, to basically not to gossip, only make an agreement that you're only going to go to the person who can do something about it. And then I teach leaders some things to how to make agreements and then how to enforce the agreements so that the company stays focusing on not the negatives, but what we really want that is true, that's going to move us forward. Because
Okay.
everything people do to criticize is just them criticizing themselves, and they don't realize that. It hurts you more than the other person that you're criticizing.
Okay, that was very insightful. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Gary, I want to say a special thank you for all your insightful answers and incredible amount of knowledge that you presented on our podcast today. And I wish all the listeners to extract the best gold nuggets from this podcast and apply it to their workflows. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining.
And if they want to find out how to locate me, they can go to riseleadershipgroup.com and they can find my contact information on there.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Gary. And I will
Thank
speak
you.
soon.
Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
It's always an honor and a privilege.
Amazing. All right, thanks, Gary. I'll get it edited and I'll send you the podcast once it's ready in about two
Yeah,
weeks. Two
I
weeks time.
appreciate it. Thank you. So that we can put it on different places.
Exactly. All right. I think you got the
Okay.
link, so I'll see you sometime in May. Okay?
Okay, buddy. Sounds good. You have a good day, okay?
You too. Bye bye.
Thank you.